as the emotional hammer. See, people are dying and you still won't give us your gas stove or your car or your paycheck. We're not going to give up our private jets. AOC and Bernie Sanders, they're not going to give up their private transportation, but you need to give up your energy source. You shouldn't be using HVAC anyway. See, this is, you know what it was that probably blew out our HVAC? It was that damn Zoran Mamdani who wanted us to have it 78 degrees. Well, Zoran Mamdani got his wish. It was 88 degrees in our room last night upstairs. I was telling Stephanie, I'm like, we're like the Europeans. This is what it's like to live in Europe. This is what the left wants for all of us. Now, their buildings will still be air conditioned. Stephanie in the chat says, we've got someone coming at 9 a.m. It's $130 just for them to come out plus repairs. Yeah, well, at this point, it's cheap. $130 is less than what we were going to pay for one of those portable AC units. I still might get one for the office because even when our AC is blowing, we're still cooking back here, Colton and Brad and I. I don't know why, but anyways, people are dying, though, and the left are using them as props to say, see, climate change, right? The things that actually save people in the heat are cheap, physical, and immediate. The things being sold in the name of this postal worker who died, those things are expensive, they're very abstract, and what do they cost us? Always, they want our freedom. But let's start where this comes from because it matters. The Associated Press in Newark, one of the most respected survey shops in the country, sat down with 1,100 adults between July 23rd and 27th last month, and the margin of error was under 4 points, so it was a good survey. So when these numbers come back ugly for the climate crowd, they don't get to just wave this away as right-wing noise. This is their own gold standard data talking, okay? So here's the number that they don't want us to talk about on this show today. Today, 66% of Americans say climate change is happening. Okay, that sounds like a lot. It is a lot. But 1 year ago, that was 73%. So we've had a 7-point drop in people believing in the climate change BS in 12 months. 7 points in polling, by the way, is an earthquake. We decided entire presidencies on margins smaller than that. And it happened during the exact stretch that they keep calling the hottest in human history. Now, let's crack this number open because it gets even bigger. About 17% of people now say they're just not sure climate change is happening. And another 15% say flat out that it isn't based. Stack those together and you're looking at nearly a third of this entire country sitting somewhere between skeptical and flatly unconvinced. Okay. That's good news. It's not a fringe anymore. We are now a movement. So congratulations to everybody who's been pushing this, by the way. The Wake Up America show, of course, has been very successful at this. Now, here's the part that should make your head spin. At the very same moment that the belief in climate change is falling, more Americans say they personally feel the heat in their daily lives, especially out west and here in Missouri and the Midwest across a brutal summer. So people are feeling the heat more, and the hate, yes, and they're believing the politics less. So these two lines are kind of crossing right here in front of us. And I have to say, it's good to know that my fellow Americans are starting to wake up. Welcome, Snow Rider P. Glad you're here, bud. So Democrats are more likely than Republicans to say the heat has had a major impact on their daily lives. But if you flip the coin over, it tells a different story because Republicans are just less likely to rebuild their entire life around a weather forecast. Good for you. One side is panicking and the other side just, puts on a hat, grabs some water, and gets on with the day. Like normal people. We're normal. I'm with Randall Carlson on this. Who is that? Eric Wilson says, this isn't the quickest rise in temperature. They can't zoom out. Tell us who Randall Carlson is, Eric Wilson Live. And good morning to you, sir. It's nice to see you guys. So the heat is real. Scientists rank 2025 as one of the three hottest years on record since they measured, right next to 2024 and 2023. So nobody on the show here is arguing about the thermometer. And it isn't just temperature on a screen because climatologists at Virginia Tech figured that by May, roughly 60% of the country was in some level of drought, with about 20% of it in the extreme category. Colorado's been hammered. So did Southeast down around Florida and Georgia. So there is a real strain on farmers that's happening right now. We shouldn't just kind of hand wave it away because the left wants to take away all of our freedom in the name of trying to change the climate and, in reality, of course, funnel and redistribute our money into their pockets. We need to talk about it because I don't know if any of you have ever heard, there's this kind of obscure lake out in the American Southwest that I went on vacation to once with my family, and my dad and I were always sharing articles about it because we basically got while the getting is good. There is a lake outside of Las Vegas, and it's called Lake Powell. Has anybody ever heard of Lake Powell? Well, it's become this huge story because Lake Mead and Lake Powell, the water levels are so low that they don't know if they're ever going to be able to refill. Actually, I can pull up a little, looks like there's a nice little time lapse. Let me see when I pull it up for you guys. Definitely running out of water there. Good morning, Quest. Good morning, Byron. Quest says, I think there are reasons to reduce carbon emissions, but the fear mongering has done the cause a long-term disservice. The grubby left has turned it into a control mechanism. Absolutely agree. Byron says, I took geology in college. There's such a thing as natural climate change. The left just wants to blame it on capitalism. Of course. That is not obscure, says Entropy No Bad. I'm not sure what you're responding to there. Eric Wilson says, Randall Carlson is a researcher and speaker best known for his work on catastrophism, the idea that sudden large-scale geological events have shaped Earth's history. Very true. Very interesting. The Colorado just dies in the desert now. Yeah, absolutely. I wonder, see, here's a beautiful, this is kind of what you can expect from Lake Powell. So Lake Powell is basically it's like a lake in the Grand Canyon. An absolutely beautiful feature. Let's see. And yeah, here we go. Cruising on Lake Powell in 4K. I'll mute it there up in the background, but it's going away. And you basically go out. The best way to visit Lake Powell is you go out on a houseboat with a bunch of your friends, and then you camp out on shore. We slept out on the deck at night. You could see all of the stars at night there. It's absolutely gorgeous. And the water is so crystal clear and beautiful that when you go out on like a jet ski or a boat, when you get up close to the rock faces, if you look down, you can see how far down the cliffs go down deep into the blue-green water. And it's an absolutely beautiful part of the American Southwest. So if you ever get a chance to visit it, highly recommend you do so because look at how blue that water is. Absolutely gorgeous. And there's a lot of natural fossils. So they have this thing called the Rainbow Bridge out there, which is a Native American like holy ground. But when you walk up to the bridge, they have dinosaur footprints on the ground that you can see, the little dinosaur footprints, the fossils of their footprints there while you walk around. So it's an incredible visit. Look, you can actually see where the water used to be right there on those halfway points. So it's sad, but there is a big strain on our water supply, and the United States has experienced a significant drought. Now, there's this man named Hazel, this guy who's a conservative Republican who believes in climate change, and he simply plans his day around the heat. But then there's another that was interviewed for this story named Conway. See the houseboat there. And he is an independent who basically shrugged and says, you know what? Sometimes you just got to be out in the bad weather, which is true. And that's adulthood. Yes, you just have to learn how to deal with it. Humans have adapted to all kinds of struggles. And at some point, we may go the way of the dinosaurs. If a gigantic meteor hits the Earth and destroys us, there's nothing that we can do about that. There's just nothing you can do. You have to just realize that there's nothing inside of your control. So you just got to not worry about it and go on with your day. Heat kills more Americans every year than any other kind of weather, more than hurricanes, more than floods, more than tornadoes. The answer to deadly heat, in my opinion, is more cool. It's working HVAC systems. Thormock reminds us, Don't forget, we're carbon-based life forms. You and I are the carbon they truly want to eliminate. Completely agree. Arizona is a lower basin state and keeps getting shafted on water rights. Absolutely true there, Entropy Nomad. Good morning, good morning. So the answer to this deadly heat wave that we're facing is working HVAC systems. And if you have geothermal like us, be prepared to pay through the nose. It's not a smaller, more rationed life like people like AOC want us to have, right? And the skepticism on climate change, it didn't just fall out of the sky this summer. I mean, if you go all the way back to 2023, there was an NPR poll that found 3 out of 4 Republicans already put the economy ahead of climate change when forced to pick. So the instinct is to worry about paying the bill first. And that's old news. That's not like some new revelation. What's brand new, though, what's actually newsworthy is that the baseline belief itself in climate change is finally starting to crack. So good. NPR watched this. They of course, packaged it as terrible disaster. The Associated Press led with a photo of people fanning themselves at the state fair. And the comfortable angle that they took was that the heat is changing our lives. But the 7-point collapse in belief in climate change, they actually buried that deep down in the article where most folks never scroll, or where, you know, your liberal cousin or aunt has already turned it off because they've gotten to their, you know, place of business. But when the most shocking thing that you dug up and there's the one thing that you hide, then you've told everybody exactly who you were writing for. So why is belief in climate change sliding even though the thermometer is climbing? I think it's a trust problem. I don't think it's a science problem. The same experts that blew the pandemic, that locked our kids out of school and swore up and down they were following the science, you know, the Fauci people, they're now back and they're asking us to trust us with their cars and with flights and air travel, right? They're telling us that we should trust the science, right? Also they want to ban your gas stoves. Oh, and Zorn Mamdani wants you to set your thermostat to 78. And people remember that because I think your credibility is kind of like a bank account, and that crowd is overdrawn.
But you have to try awfully hard not to notice how much Fauci is energized by being embraced by one particular cultural tribe. It was Julia Roberts who was telling Fauci he was Jesus with a petri dish, not Randy Quaid. And that side likes to think of themselves as the purely science people, even though keeping kids out of school that long and traumatizing 2-year-olds with masks wasn't good science. Fauci supported some strange policies for such an esteemed epidemiologist. Natural immunity doesn't count now? Meaning, even if you've had the disease, you still had to get the shot? That sounds more like what Pfizer and Fauci's celebrity friends wanted to hear. He let this shit go to his head. Turns out the really dangerous intimate contact wasn't shaking hands, it was kissing ass.
Good morning, Neil. Good morning, Jackie, wherever you are. Hey, even Cousin Nettie isn't that crazy. Thanks, Barrett. Exactly. I'm back. Welcome to the Wake Up America show, guys. I'm Austin Petersen. We're glad and thankful to have you here. Hey, did you guys know that the Wake Up America show has an audio version of this podcast? So you never have to lose out on listening to us when you're on the go. And here's some good news. I've got some good news for you guys. The audio podcast is now finally all cut and spliced and diced and ready to roll. So you no longer have to worry about listening to commercials or hearing me talking about products over at forlibertyshop.com. So we now have a new tightened, lightened audio version for you guys to be able to download if you want to listen to the audio version of it later. So let us know. If you guys want to hear the audio version and you want to listen to us in the car, highly recommend that you guys subscribe, because we now have a new automation set up so that whenever the show is over, we immediately have it sliced, diced, and brought down to its listening elements. So if you want to subscribe to the show on the audio version and get just the show itself while you're listening in the car, Neil, Jackie, those guys, Head over to forlibertynetwork.com so you can find wherever you like to listen to it, which is we've got iTunes and Spotify. When you're at forlibertynetwork.com, you guys can click the listen button at the top of the screen, or if you're on your mobile device, you got to go through the hamburger menu. But you can click listen on Apple Podcasts, listen on Spotify. You can also choose to play it in your browser as well. So head over to forlibertynetwork.com, and while you're there signing up for the podcast, you can also click to get our daily newsletter that we have. We call it the Daily Volley. You can get that all signed up again at forlibertynetwork.com. And if you've got an iPhone, then please do give us a 5-star review, and a written review would be nice if you can. Help us to climb in the charts. Totally free way to support the For Liberty Network, but you can also do Rumble Rants as well. So there we go. All right, so the audio podcast we expect to become a huge hit now that we're actually like really properly slicing and dicing it for you guys. Okay, sound good? Good. Okay, let's do it. Okay. All right, the heat. We're talking about the heat. So what is the answer to the heat? The answer is nuclear power. Easy enough, right? Abundance. Duh. No, Sherlock. Exactly. So cheap, reliable electricity. More nuclear plants. More nuclear plants, huh? Well, it's going to be at least $50. To clean your HVAC system, it's going to be at least $50. I don't know where that came from. It's probably it's a Francesca. I've been listening to too many Francesca Hong tweets or talks about how she hates Thanksgiving.
Democrats have found a candidate who hates Thanksgiving and wants to get rid of it. Yes, running for governor in Wisconsin, Francesca Hong. Have you heard about this? Yeah, Thanksgiving, she says, should be canceled. I say good. Finally, a politician willing to stand up to big stuffing. Of course, yesterday she went on CNN and renounced it.
You like shitty HVAC, Brad? You like shitty HVAC, huh? Gonna be at least $50 to fix it.
I don't believe you people who renounce things. We know what you said. You mean it. Live by it. You're fucking squirrely out of it. No, you meant it. You know why I know she meant it? Because she hates all holidays.
I hate Thanksgiving.
She talked about feeling attacked on Christmas when someone put on her computer a Christmas scene. Doesn't like fireworks, 4th of July. Halloween, all the far lefties hate Halloween. Costumes that are inappropriate, oh please.
No, well that's true. The left used to really go after Halloween because of girls dressed up in slutty costumes and dressing like a sexy Native American or whatever. But they realized that they loved Satan more than they hated women being attractive in public in costume. Because remember, that was a big deal back like 10, 15 years ago. Every year, BuzzFeed would subject us to costumes that we weren't allowed to wear. But then the left decided that, they love dressing up as sexy goth girls and, being little hoes in public.
This woman doesn't like Valentine's Day, another way of capitalism taking over our love life. She said, Valentine's Day, the holiday that brings out the worst of humanity. That's the holiday that brings out the worst of humanity? Have you ever been to a Black Friday sale?
Let me tell you something. Bill Maher, I'm gonna have those L words voting Republican for the. Bill Maher's gonna vote Republican. It's coming, right? All right. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about climate change. We're talking about sweat dripping down my crack. Why are we talking about that? Because my HVAC is broken and it's hot and people don't believe in climate change. God bless them. Lining them up like ass crack. Don't stop. Get it. Now watch me gravitate. So how do we beat the heat, guys? Well, you beat your heat. Your heat. Oh my God, Austin, what is going on? The show's already derailed. You beat the heat, not beat your heat. But you can beat your heat if you want. I'll beat my heat. I've got to beat my heat by generating my way straight through it. God, I hope that Jackie's enjoying this, Neil. I hope that you guys are appreciating it by not by rationing yourself into a hotter, darker, smaller life and calling it virtual. Exactly. You've seen the L ratio. See, Rick, you knew it. You knew it. All right. So this is where everything ties into our wallet. One of the AP's own scientists, Jennifer Francis, points out the extreme heat hits people's bank accounts too. And she's right. But think it all the way through. If your grand solution to heat is energy policy that drives power prices through the roof, then you're punishing the exact family's grocery store who are behind on the rent, right? You're making victims pay for it twice. So here's the thing that explains this, like why this 7-point drop in belief in climate change rattles the left so much. Nobody runs a national poll asking whether it's hot outside. Everybody knows it's hot. The poll belief scares them because belief is the raw material that the left melts down into mandates and taxes and bans. If they don't believe in climate change, then they don't get permission to redistribute our wealth. So when the belief starts draining out of the tank, the whole machine runs dry. And that right there, that is what the left is actually afraid of. Good morning. Good morning, pineapples. Looking very good and very nice.
Do you support Hong or Tiffany?
I support Francesca Hong.
And why so?
She wants to get ICE out and like all her, well, there's so many different policies.
Yeah.
I consider myself to be a leftist, and I think there needs to be a huge change in how we view our politics in Wisconsin.
Yeah, you've been alive for 10 minutes. Yeah, tell us how the world should be ordered.
The entire state. I think she will bring us in the right direction.
Absolutely. And I feel like we're seeing a wave of socialism across the country. I'm from New York, and we voted Mamdani in. So we really want to hear from what we would say the new face of the Democrat Party. So what would be your message to the Democrats who are worried about their party going towards socialism?
Don't be worried that we're going to head towards communism, because it's the United States. That's never going to happen realistically. And like we're headed towards fascism right now. So what's worse, socialism or fascism?
Right. And we always ask for both sides. So Republicans, they get worried when they hear ICE out. They don't know what it should be replaced with. What do you think it should be replaced with after ICE is out?
Nothing. Honestly. I think no human is illegal. Like we should just have better policies and make it available for anyone to come into the country who needs to.
Yeah. So do you think that we should open the border?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I know, so in New York, I heard from a guy who was...
Jesus Christ, I can't listen to it anymore. Good morning. Rise and freedom, guys. Glad and thankful to have you here. Please do click the like button. And if today's your first time watching the Wake Up America show, click the follow button as well. We would be glad and thankful to have you here on the Wake Up America show, Mondays through Fridays, 7 to 9 a.m. Central. Quest Fanning says, I'm getting Vanessa Huxtable vibes from this dude. Look at that shoulder. That's a good point. Raise the voting age to 69, says Eric Wilson Live. You know what the funny thing about that is that you don't really even have to do that, because the truth is that that's the only people who ever vote anyway. You could lower the voting age to 12, and the only people who would show up to vote would be people above the age of 69. That's why it's a joke that voting is another job it's another job that illegal immigrants are taking from Americans, because it's a job that Americans won't do. Yes. Anyone talking like that should be forced doxxed so I could rob them, says Hans. Hans, you're very aggressive this morning. Good to see you, brother. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. Don't forget, guys, we do have bonus content available for you to unlock. If you would like to see our mini documentary for today, keep those Rumble rants coming in like you have. Quest and Byron both have donated this morning. We're glad for that. We always have new products dropping at forlibertyshop.com. I highly recommend that you guys check them out. Also, we're bringing back one of our most prized items over in the Grift Shop this morning, and they're going to be on a very limited run. which is I know gonna excite a lot of people, because when the last time that we had these in the store, people went crazy for them, and they take a long time to manufacture. So we kind of got rid of them a while, because like Stephanie got really sick of like having to like sand these down and put them in the mail. But the Killdozers are coming back in stock. This is going to be our first one. The new prototype is almost completed here. So the Killdozer, the model of the Killdozer will be available at 4libertyshop.com. That's the number 4libertyshop.com. I'll go ahead and put one in the shop just in case anybody wants to buy the prototype, because this will be done today. But let's see, we do have other things like the Killdozer pillow, which is like the full pillow collection. Like if you want to sleep your head, 3D printed Killdozer model detailed replica. Yeah, I'll go ahead and put one in the store, but then it's not going to be cheap, just because it does take a long time to print these things. It takes like 24 hours to print them, and I'll just go ahead and put one in store, set it to active in case anybody wants this one. This one will be, like I said, will be completed today. Let me check where the options are to say in stock. I'll put one available. Let's see if I can do it. It's not letting me do it. Yeah, there we go. Edit locations, one, bridal spur. I'm not sure. Like, I'll just set it right now. Give me 2 seconds. So, I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break. Take a quick little break. When we get back, the Killdozer will be back in the store, and we're going to talk about, what are we going to talk about? Does anybody know? Did anybody read the show notes I've got? Oh yeah, AOC took a public video of her freezing her eggs. Her fiance must be very upset. This is the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. 'Tis the year of our Lord, 1801. President Trump Jefferson casts his gaze o'er the sovereign Potomac and beholds a most wretched spectacle upon the waters. From the cursed shores of Tripoli and the welfare coffers of distant Minnesota comes the brazen Captain Ilhan Omar, commanding her fleet of Barbary pirates. She demands her ransom, billions in reparations. Yet one instrument of fortitude suffices, a steaming chalice of Jeffersonian Java, bold and unapologetic from 4 Liberty Shop. No more tribute to rogues, he thunders, and dispatches the Navy and Marines to smash Omar's fleet asunder. Trump Jefferson stands triumphant as Omar's plunder meets the end it deserved back in Minnesota. Jeffersonian Java, the coffee that gives true Americans the courage to refuse tribute and rebuke fraud. Procure yours at 4libertyshop.com and make America caffeinated again.
Hark! I've discovered a brew so bold, 'twill ignite the spirit of liberty. This is not merely coffee, 'tis the very essence of American boldness. Give me coffee, or give me death. Go to 4 Liberty Shop to procure yours now.
Imagine bringing
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
The left in America tells us not to have kids to save the planet, but in Cuba, they stopped having kids because the state destroyed the earth.
Collectivism doesn't create justice. It creates shortages, corruption, and power for the few. I've not just seen it, I've lived it. My family escaped it. Now the same failed ideas are being sold to a new generation. I'm here to expose the lie and defend liberty. From Cuba to Argentina to the United States, the freedom movement is rising. Cafecito Libre is the exile voice of economic truth. Cafecito Libre, premiering March 3rd as part of the For Liberty Network, only on Rumble.
Our planet is going to be a disaster if we don't turn this ship around. And so it's basically like there's scientific consensus that the lives of children are going to be very difficult. And it does lead, I think, young people to have a legitimate question. You know, is it okay to still have children?
This is an unvarnished perspective.
Our planet is a disaster if we don't turn this ship around. And so it's basically like there's scientific consensus that the lives of children are going to be very difficult. And it does lead, I think, young people to have a legitimate question, should
they have kids? Well, yeah, we're all going to die from climate change, right? Good morning. Rise and freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. We're glad and thankful to have you here. Appreciate very much RVolt24 hanging out with us. Andy Opperman as well. Rick Perry, guys, grabbing the killdozers. Yeah, everybody loves these killdozers. Looks like looks like killdozers are back on the menu, boys. Yes, so the killdozer now in shop. We'll have this one done today. I'll have another one cranked out tomorrow. We're just going to start printing them as fast as we can. I don't know why people love the killdozer so much, but they do. So we're just going to print killdozers. That's what we have, a killdozer printing shop here at forlibertyshop.com. Thank you, Andy, and thank you to Rick Perry. So the camera was rolling, the needle went in, and I was cringing so hard through my sweat drenching my shirts this weekend with the HVAC going out. Of course, the temperature, we're in a heat crisis, so our AC goes down. L Ratio says 3D print idea, a chopper for throwing commies from. That is a good idea. That is a great idea. It comes with like a little commie that you can hang from it. So it's basically like she's retarded. Exactly, Entropy. She is retarded.
Don't be weird about this.
How are you going to...
No, I know all of you will be.
Of course they're going to be weird about it. Ugh. The tortification is complete. If you don't like
that wasn't so bad.
You know, like the needles. So AOC was sitting in a green room there. She's got her phone propped up in front of her. She's got a hormone syringe, and she tells her followers not to be weird about it as she pulls her pants down and injects herself. She says what she's doing is badass. She's 36 years old, and she announced this weekend she's freezing her eggs. And then she filmed the injection for Instagram, and then she went out to go talk policy on ABC. She says, women can do anything. Give yourself shots in the green room. Get your glam on. Pop out. Live your life. So she frames this now as a form of resistance. This is what resistance has boiled down to at this point. Resistance is filming yourself freezing your eggs on camera for your millions of followers. So she says this is a statement against an administration, she says, is denying women reproductive care. And then, of course, the praise, the yes, queen, yes. Of course, it pours in from all over the typical people, brave, inspiring. She's showing women the way. The movement that is cheering the loudest is the same movement that spent 30 years telling a generation of women that family comes last, that career comes first, that biology is a cage, and that the delay of having kids is freedom. Freezing your eggs at 36 is not a victory over the message. This is just the invoice. This is the paying of bills. And while she was filming her syringe, Politico published this piece admitting that the West's demographic math no longer adds up. Birth rates are collapsing. The welfare state needs bodies to pay for all the retirees. So the answer from the establishment is not that we should have more kids. It's freeze your eggs, right? Convince people to have children, which they failed to do, or import them. So this is the whole game in one weekend that came out. The ideology that built the baby bust is now selling us the workaround to this, but they call it liberation. Now, never mind that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said this on Instagram in 2018.
Our planet is going to face disaster if we don't turn this ship around. And so it's basically like there's scientific consensus that the lives of children are going to be very difficult. And it does lead, I think, young people to have a legitimate question. Is it okay to still have children?
This is, I guess, but is it okay to still have children? Let me ask you something. You're freezing your eggs, lady. Is it okay to have children? You must have decided that at some point in the future, it might still be okay to have children. Is anybody, am I taking crazy pills? Or am I the only person who sees the hypocrisy here? That she's freezing her eggs to have children at some point in the future, but we're all going to die from climate change. All right, let's get into this. So Saturday night, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez pulled out her phone, whipped out her flabby tummy. The tortification was complete. She filmed this moment where she was jabbing this fertility needle into her own body. And then before the shot goes in, she warns her followers not to be weird about it, which of course, everybody immediately got weird about it. Everybody's, of course they're turning this horny. AOC's husband, who's never had sex, watching his wife freeze her eggs right there. You can see. Imagine, you know what she's doing? She's freezing her eggs in case a man comes along that she might want to reproduce with. Not her husband. Not that guy. Not this guy. That's not who she's going to have kids with. So she says it's badass, right? She says that she's getting her glam on, she's living her life, right? And she ties her own eggs straight to the White House. She says that because this administration is denying women reproductive care, leaders like her have a duty to share these personal moments and normalize them. A private medical choice that she's making. And then it's, of course, bastardized for a campaign message. And then, of course, she puts out this.
My insurance does not cover one penny of this.
No
it is
shit.
100% out of pocket.
It is an elective procedure. You could literally just have sex with your husband and have a baby right now.
It doesn't go to my deductible, nothing.
She doesn't want his kid. You know what it is she's worried about? She's got a white husband. She doesn't want those white. She doesn't want to have to deal with what Francesca has to deal with. Francesca Hong, the gubernatorial candidate in Wisconsin, who said that she looks at her child and she considers that her half child that she had with a white husband, proximity to whiteness, that she doesn't want to have to struggle with.
Covers nothing. So there's two main sources of costs. So you don't just pay one lump sum to the doctor. You pay for the medicine, and then you also pay your clinic and for the procedure. So there's two costs of it. Some places are very expensive. I'm going to a place in New York City that specifically designs options for women who don't have insurance covering it. And so my grand total personally for me, all in, is going to be probably between $8,000 to $9,000. The other piece of this is the actual clinic and procedure and your provider. And a lot of clinics actually don't require you to pay in a lump sum. I saved a long time for this.
So you saved a long time for this. Think about that. She's got a man in her life and she's saving all of this money so that she can freeze her eggs rather than just copulate with the man that she's with right now. So she's 36 years old, 37. She wants to delay having kids until what? Until you're how old? Listen, it's a private choice. It's fine. You're talking about it public. This is the kind of thing that, women are going to be like, Austin, you're attacking a woman who's with. It's her choice. I'm not saying it's not her choice. She absolutely has a choice. But think about the husband. Think about what the man has to deal with in this scenario. He has to deal with the fact that his wife does not want to have sex with him. That is what the world sees. But again, it's not about your partner. It's all about you, isn't it, Queen? It's not about anybody else. It's about let it go, right? It's about not caring what anyone else thinks. And it's fine. You want to live that kind of a selfish life. It's fine, but why even get married? I don't know. Didn't Trump make IVF easier, says JJ4884. Never let the facts get in the way of a good narrative, JJ. And thank you very much for that. We've unlocked all phases of bonus content, and we will be playing that bonus content. I can't wait to hear what Tom Pappert is going to say about that. He's going to be joining us live in just about 5 minutes. The Killdozer is back in store, baby. So head on over to forlibertyshop.com and snatch them up. We'll get these things printed, sanded, and out the door in no time. I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network, and I won't freeze your eggs, baby. You know how I like my eggs? Fertilized. All right, guys. Tom Pappert coming up next. We'll talk to him about that and more. But while you guys are on the break, don't forget to visit the 4 Liberty Shop store at 4libertyshop.com and 4libertynetwork.com, the home of the revolution. This is the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network. Be right back.
Town of Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, on November 26, 1727, a boy was born who would become the first overall commander of the Patriot forces at the outbreak of the American Revolution. His name was Artemas Ward. Ward grew up in a solid New England family and received a strong education, graduating from Harvard College in 1748. Like many ambitious young men of his generation, he combined public service with military experience. During the French and Indian War, he served as a colonel of Massachusetts militia, gaining practical knowledge of command, logistics, and the harsh realities of campaigning in North America. By the 1760s and early 1770s, Ward had become a respected figure in Massachusetts politics. He served in the colonial legislature and joined the growing resistance against British policies. When the confrontation finally turned into open warfare on April 19, 1775, at Lexington and Concord, the colonies suddenly needed military leadership on a scale they had never before attempted. In the chaotic days that followed the fighting, Massachusetts turned to Artemas Ward. He was appointed General and Commander-in-Chief of the Massachusetts forces. Other New England colonies soon placed their troops under his overall direction. Almost overnight, Ward found himself responsible for thousands of poorly trained, poorly supplied militiamen surrounding the British Army in Boston. The situation was extremely difficult. The Patriot forces were enthusiastic but disorganized. There was no formal supply system, little heavy artillery, and constant shortages of powder and provisions. Ward worked tirelessly to impose order, establish a chain of command, and maintain the siege of Boston. He directed the fortification of key positions around the city and tried to mold the disparate militia regiments into something resembling an army. In June 1775, while Ward was in overall command, the Battle of Bunker Hill was fought. Although he did not personally direct the fighting on the field that day, the battle took place under his authority as the senior American commander. The heavy British casualties at Bunker Hill proved that the poorly equipped Patriot forces could stand up to regular troops, a crucial early boost to American morale. When the Continental Congress created the Continental Army in June 1775, they chose George Washington as commander-in-chief. Ward was made a major general and became Washington's second-in-command. In July, Washington arrived in Cambridge and formally took charge. Ward stepped aside from overall leadership without public complaint and continued to serve loyally under the new commander. He remained with the army through the successful conclusion of the Siege of Boston in March 1776, when the British were finally forced to evacuate the city. Afterward, Ward's active field service declined. Chronic poor health limited his ability to campaign, and in 1777 he resigned his commission. Even after leaving the army, Ward continued to serve the Patriot cause. He sat in the Continental Congress and later held important judicial and political offices in Massachusetts. He lived to see American independence secured and the new Constitution put into effect. Artemas Ward died on October 28, 1800 at the age of 72. He was never a flashy battlefield commander or a brilliant strategist. His greatness lay in a different kind of leadership. In the dangerous and uncertain spring and summer of 1775, when the revolution was still fragile and the army was little more than a collection of armed farmers, Artemas Ward held the forces together. He organized the siege of Boston, maintained the army in the field, and provided the foundation upon which George Washington would later build. Without the early work of men like Ward, the Continental Army might never have survived long enough for Washington to take command. He was the steady hand at the beginning of the storm. Artemus Ward, the first commander of the Patriot Army, and the man who held the line until Washington arrived.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Don't be weird about this, even though I know all of you will be. Okay. That wasn't so bad. Don't be weird about this.
Okay, well, it wasn't so bad for you, but it was definitely awkward for us. Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show. Tom Pappert is here from the Tennessee Star. He couldn't see the clip, but he could hear it. I don't know if you hear it listening to an injection or watching one is worse, Tom. Good morning. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Austin. And unfortunately, I am like alive and on the internet in 2026. So I have seen this video. I am aware of AOC injecting her fertility drugs. And, you know, a couple years ago, there was an attempt by the Democrats to call J.D. Vance weird. And I think at this point, we need to put that to bed. AOC is weird. This is weird. I'm not having a kid. I'm going to wait till I'm 36. I'm going to harvest my eggs and put them in a freezer, and I'm going to put it on Instagram for everybody to look at. That is weird.
Yeah, it is a rather bizarre act. I agree with you. I mean, it's not to say that I don't think women ought to be able to use like certain like fertility treatments to be able to have children. But when politicians do things like this, like I don't care what you are, this is performative. Like this is not meant to try and do anything other than manipulate her audience, her followers into clapping like seals and saying, "Yes, queen." Now, the interesting thing was that I think that President Trump expanded access to IVF, even though she was complaining about saying that that this was not something that was taken care of by her health insurance. I mean, it is an elective procedure. And I mean, not to be too graphic or anything, Tom, but she could always just have sex with her husband and have a child. I mean,
Well, I'm sure the poor guy would appreciate that after all these years. He's just been kept sitting on the side. But no, that's exactly right. There was a moment in 2024 when some perhaps religiously motivated Republicans, I think in Alabama, were attempting to ban IVF in the wake of Roe versus Wade being reversed. And they thought, well, this is the next logical step. And maybe there is a Christian argument for that. I think a lot of Catholics say that every life you're creating with this IVF is being just frozen and put on the back burner. And that is not the Republican position. That is a specific Christian position that some candidates in Alabama held. Trump came out against it, and as a result, the Republican Party pretty much dropped it entirely. So yeah, no, there is no Republican opposition to IVF in any meaningful form. In fact, the Republican Party is pro-natalist. They want people to have kids. That way we don't have to bring over immigrants instead of kids.
Yeah, that was what I was going to be my next point, because the Politico actually admitted that the West is having a demographic collapse, that the birth rate numbers don't add up. For them, of course, the answer is to import a billion mammalians, while still telling young women that they should freeze their eggs and that they can wait forever to have kids. But I'll tell you this, as an old dad, I'm 45 years old. I wish I'd had kids earlier. I mean, because just carrying my daughter in a certain way gave me an injury that required physical therapy. Let me tell you, chasing around a 2-year-old at 45 years old, even though like I'm in good shape, listen, I've done martial arts for 20 years, but chasing a child all day is something else, because they're constantly trying to kill themselves. So I'm telling you, if you can have kids younger, do it. But I mean, here's the thing. She is everything that the Democratic Socialist left represents. Privileged, can afford this very expensive voluntary treatment, while lecturing the rest of us about not being able to afford this kind of care. So that leads us to the next topic here, because what I brought you on here to talk about today is that the radical left, whether it's Francesca Hong in Wisconsin, who says that she doesn't believe that she hates Thanksgiving, or did you see Abdul El Sayed, the Michigan Democratic senator, says that he hates Mackinac Island? I mean, that is like, if there's anything that people know about Michigan, it's Mackinac Island. It's almost as if the Democratic Socialists are entirely like a rump party within the Democrats. What's the dynamics here, Tom? And do you think that Abdul El Sayed, Francesca Hong, do you think these people are going to help our case, hurt our case? Lay it on me.
Well, the Republican strategists certainly seem to think that at least some of these candidates, Francesca Hong and I think El Sayed, are going to help the Republican Party come November. And in fact, with Francesca, there's documentary evidence that super PACs came in and essentially said, look, this is the most anti-Trump candidate we've ever seen. She's dangerous. She's radical, essentially encouraging primary voters to get out and vote for Francesca. And the result is that she is the nominee. But within the Democratic Party, there's recent polling showing that the Democratic Socialists aren't even popular among their base. They only have a 40% approval rating. Nationwide, it goes down to about 24%. I think that the Democrats are essentially walking into a similar trap to the ones that Republicans set for themselves by accident in 2018. Back when Mitch McConnell was lucid and not going between hospitals and rehab centers, he would have called this a candidate quality problem. And he would have done everything he could to triage and spend all of the party's money on races that were winnable, while neglecting races like Francesca Hong and all of the other Democratic Socialist candidates. So I think there is a certain amount of strategy to this from Republicans, that by quietly backing these DSA candidates that are not going to be popular nationally, probably not going to be popular statewide in any of their states, we are essentially making the general election easier for us come November. Now, of course, the backfire would be if the Democratic Socialists are correct and they actually do have widespread support, or can get that widespread support in the next roughly 80 days. I think that the Republicans have a larger chance of success than they do over the next 2 months.
That's interesting, Tom. Now, I hope that that the worst predictions aren't proven correct, but unfortunately, that hasn't been the case for Zohran Mamdani. I mean, he's sitting in the mayor's office in New York right now. So, I mean, are these people the far left flank, or are they the Democratic Party now?
Well, I hope they're the Democratic Party now, because New York City is not the United States of America. I mean, they previously elected Eric Adams, and then before you know it, he was considered a conservative within the city. This is the guy who is going in lockstep with the Biden administration to put illegal aliens in hotels just indefinitely at taxpayer expense. So I don't think that New York is a good barometer for the United States of America, but I think it benefits Republicans to point out that the Democrats have a DSA problem. They are essentially in 2026 synonymous with the Democratic Socialists of America. And the best example is to look nowhere else than Tennessee's 9th Congressional District. There was an elderly Jewish Democrat representing that district since, if memory serves, 1979. His name was Steve Cohen. Well, he retired earlier this year after Republicans redrew the district to make it competitive for Republicans to win for the first time since 1979. And immediately, Steve Cohen dropped out of the race because he knew he was going to lose his primary to an upstart Democratic Socialist-backed candidate by the name of Justin Petersen. And Justin Petersen now is going to go on to, in my estimation, lose the general election in a landslide. So you are essentially going to see the Democratic Socialists of America take the mantle of the party just in time to see them lose at historic numbers.
Okay, man, from your lips to God's ear, Rabbi. But the entire winning message that these Democratic Socialists are running on is affordability. Whenever they run and win, that is their message. And in about 20 minutes, I'm going to speak to Jeremy Kauffman about the burrito economics fight that we're having. So the right definitely needs to get their act together on this message. El Sayed, this guy launched saying it's too hard to get by in the richest country on earth. So they're hammering the cost of the living pain. So why is the socialist left capturing that anger? Where on earth is the right's answer to it, Tom?
Well, the right's answer is from people like President Trump and J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is able to speak about this more eloquently than President Trump in some ways. And that is the fact that things are rough for young people right now. I mean, they're getting better. They've gotten so much better in the last 2 years that it almost feels like, why are we still having this conversation? But people with a degree in certain fields, especially IT, still can't get a job. They're still competing with H-1B people. Student loans are still absurd. The fact that we convinced all these kids to go get a degree that is essentially meaningless and just get a degree and you're going to magically get a job. It was a terrible idea. We never should have done that. There's actual issues with the economy that need to be addressed. However, the solution is not whatever the DSA is promoting, to give $1,000 a month universal basic income or whatever fantasy they've come up with this week. No, the solution is to do what Trump and Vance are doing, to bring in like $4 trillion of investment into America's economy, to build factories in every single state in the union so people can get middle-class, cutting-edge jobs working with AI and novel technologies to build things in America once again. In fact, last month, it was just reported in the last few days that we have reached like an all-time record in terms of factory construction jobs. So first you saw the bump in trucking where they had to move they had to transport the materials to the construction sites. Now we're seeing the bump in construction of the actual factories. The next bump we're going to see, Austin, is a massive increase in employment numbers as people go to work in these cutting-edge factories. I think it's an exciting time. That's what we should be telling young people, not vote for me and get something for free. And it's a compelling narrative. But what's not compelling is when we go to a young person and we say, you shouldn't be eating out anyway, stupid millennial, even though millennials are like pushing 40 now. 50, I think, in some cases. We should not be saying that. We should be saying, here is your solution. Here is how you get to the middle class, not you shouldn't be living a happy life anyway. You exist to fund my Social Security. That is how you make sure the DSA wins in 2028.
Good point. JJ in the chat says, is Mr. Tom being optimistic? The same theories were said about Trump. What answers does the GOP establishment have to combat free stuff? I think he gave a pretty good answer there. But in regards to the question about what the left is offering, even what you have said, Tom, which sounds good to me, you're offering jobs. We're still competing with free stuff. So you're still saying, even if your message is much more watered down than like someone like myself would be saying, like, get a job, kid, and don't eat frozen burritos instead of Chipotle. Even if that is true, we're still competing with free stuff, which still gives them a playing field advantage. But let's move on. We're going to talk to Jeremy Kauffman about that, and we'll get into burrito economics in just a few minutes, Tom, because I want to ask you about the electoral viability of someone who campaigns with someone who thinks that 9/11 was deserved. So if you run around in like libertarian, like fringe circles, like I have for most of my career, it is not uncommon to find a libertarian saying something like that, which is kind of part of the reason why I had to back away from the libertarian movement to a great extent, because they bought into Osama bin Laden's lies about the reasons why he attacked us on 9/11, the support for Israel, the bombing of their countries and their lands, and they conveniently forgot and left out like all of the other like things that he left unsaid. It's safe to say Osama bin Laden is a liar. Now, 20 years ago, if you had run for office and campaigned with a guy who said that America deserved 9/11, that would be disqualifying. What does it say that now it's not disqualifying, that you can run, as Abdel Sayed did, with streamer Hassan Piker, who says America deserves 9/11? He even put the flaming Twin Towers behind him on his stream. So, I mean, what does that say? I mean, just about America itself, because this is who the Democrats think that they should run in a mainstream election for Senate, Tom.
I think the voters in November will determine that it is still disqualifying and that it was a horrible mistake by the primary voters and a brilliant stroke of genius by the Republican strategists to support the Democrats in the primaries of these various states. I think that in many ways, the Democrats are experiencing their own version of what Republicans did during the 2022 elections. And that is when McConnell was apparently last lucid and last spoke about this candidate quality problem. But you actually, if you think back to 2022, had candidates that were, or had recently, within the last 12 months, let's say, appearing on stage with Nick Fuentes, who is kind of like the right-wing Hassan Piker. He's faded in relevance. He's a literally who nobody at this point. But in 2022, he was sort of the right-wing Hassan Piker. And what happened in 2022 as a result? Well, the Republicans didn't have the massive landslide victories that everybody was expecting. They won. They had some improvements on the margins. We took back the House, etc. But it was not the overwhelming landslides that a party that does not hold the executive, the presidency, typically experiences. And what the Democrats are doing now, I actually think in many ways, Hassan Piker is more damaging to one's brand than Nick Fuentes. I mean, they both look weird. They both have objectively evil things that they believe. But Hassan Piker also happens to be like one of the stupidest people alive. He goes to Cuba and he allegedly admits that he broke the law in order to go there. He's got federal investigations into him. He's got the burning Twin Towers behind him. This guy is electoral suicide. Maybe in another 30 years, when the Somali vote is a serious block, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're all going to get deported or otherwise be politically marginalized by the massive Trump-Vance political alliance. But I don't think that Hassan Piker is going to work in terms of a speaker, an advocate in 2026.
So the GOP, their own Senate campaign arm, They ran ads talking up El Sayed's progressive record, trying to get him to push past Stevens because they thought he'd be easier to beat. Trump did the same thing. So it sounds like you think that that might have been the right strategy, that you should play up these guys. Because, I mean, Francesca Hong, for example, coming out and saying she hates Thanksgiving, did a quick about face. I mean, do you think that Sayed saying, I hate Mackinac Island, you think that these things are disqualifying, Tom?
I say even among Democrats, Austin. I've got some polling in front of me now. A Pew survey says only 33% of Democrats even support the Democratic Socialists of America. That's one of the less optimistic polls. A higher, more optimistic poll says 59% of Democrats support the Democratic Socialists of America. So that's not even 2/3 are going to support their candidate. Are they going to get in line? Are they going to be excited to vote? Now, nationwide, across the country, the DSA has a 24% favorability rating. They're about tied with Congress, to put that in perspective, which hovers between like 20 and 34 the last time I looked. So this is not a popular and ascendant group. It remains to be seen whether they can manage to weaponize the anti-Trump vote and combine it with their "we want free stuff" and Muslim takeover of America vote in order to get some sort of winning coalition. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think what you're going to see is a lot like what's happening in Texas, where it was supposed to be so competitive and it was supposed to be so close. I think we've seen one poll showing that. The polling is pretty much shut down in that state because everybody knows that Talafrico has such a backlog of content to put in advertisements against him that he doesn't have a chance.
Talafrico, that's okay. This is the first time I've heard that one. Thank you for saying it on my show. We're speaking to Tom Pappert of the Tennessee Star this morning on the Wake Up America show. We're glad and thankful to have you here. Tom's hanging out with us today, talking a little bit about the Democratic Socialist takeover of the Democratic Party. Yeah, I saw Bill Maher was talking on his show a couple of weeks ago that he might vote for J.D. Vance. So you're right to point out that some of these more moderate Democrats, which I don't know if Bill Maher really was ever a moderate Democrat because he was advocating for these kinds of Democratic Socialist policies for years, Tom. I don't know if it's just the situation where if you're young and you're not a liberal, you have no heart, but if you're old and you're not a conservative, you have no brain. So a lot of these people are finding out what they actually believe as they get older. But yeah, Bill Maher, he's not the only one. There are a lot of them who have come out and who have said that they can't stomach supporting their candidates. I don't know if it's enough to tip it over the edge, but at least it is good to see. I mean, I don't know if Bill Maher is going to be able to say those kinds of things and remain in Hollywood for much longer, Tom. But
well, that's another big development. I think that's huge in and of itself. First of all, I think it changes when like the DSA is against Jewish people and Bill Maher is like, well, what did I ever do to you? I've been supporting you for years and now you want to kick me out of the party. So I have great empathy for him. It's a bit of a stupid thing that he was pushing and trying to align himself with these people unwittingly for so many years when they really want him dead in many ways, it seems to me. But I think that there's been a crack where all of a sudden Hollywood, the mainstream media, they have realized that the conservative coalition, the MAGA movement, it's not going away. It's a factor in America, and you can't just marginalize it completely. Now, I don't think the conservatives are equal yet, but I do think that something has changed over the past 10 years. And Bill Maher saying he would vote for J.D. Vance is perhaps the best illustration.
I completely agree. Tom Pappert, what are you working on over there at the Tennessee Star these days?
Well, we just had, of course, one heck of a competitive primary. Tennessee does theirs on Thursday, so we're all still recovering from last Thursday's primary. Marsha Blackburn is going to be the gubernatorial nominee. There's sort of an upset with the election of Charlie Hatcher over the incumbent Republican Andy Ogles. So we're sort of doing our after action reports this morning and seeing exactly what happened and why and what it might say about the state of the race across the United States this morning, as Tennessee continues to be, in my estimation, a pretty good barometer of what's going on in the country. I mean, if you look at it, Austin, it basically mirrors the polling that we're seeing in Florida and the election results that we saw in Ohio, more or less, where you have the sort of Trump-aligned candidate in Marsha Blackburn, another candidate who says, no, I'm the real Trump guy in John Rose, and then a marginal Groyper candidate in third place in Monty Fritz, who was saying that he was going to like ban certain religions from being expressed in public and do all sorts of things that seem to be utterly unconstitutional in order to get the Groyper vote. So it's a very interesting race, and we're going to have some very interesting discussions on that today at the Tennessee Star.
Tom Pappert, the Tennessee Star. Where can we follow you online, Tom?
At Real Tom Pappert on X is the best place to go. And as Austin just said, TennesseeStar.com if you want to read my work. Thank you so much for having me on. It's always a ton of fun here on Wake Up America.
We appreciate you, Tom. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time. We love your takes. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.
The abolished prisons, abolished police, which is also positions that have been taken by a lot of the progressive candidates who have won.
Mm-hmm.
How do you get around that?
Yeah.
I mean, those are not positions that are supported by
right.
most of
I mean, I think that a lot of these races, even right now, they'll have a tendency to be nationalized.
Yeah.
But these races ultimately are local, and all politics are local. My understanding is that is that Francesca Hong has made clear her present stances to her electorate.
Yeah, she's moved away from a lot
right,
of that.
she's moved away from it. And I have a local city councilman that has this saying, woke one was crazy.
Woke one was crazy. Okay, that's
Shut up. Stop staring at me, Swan. All right. Well, speaking of things that cost too much, everybody's busy fighting over the $20 burritos. We're going to talk to Jeremy Kauffman about that. But the one thing that hasn't gone up is the price of Founding Flavors coffee. That's right. We have kept our price the same since we launched our brand 3 years ago. Well, if you actually love this country, Jeffersonian Java is for you. It's our #1 selling product over at the Grift Shop. Head over to forlibertyshop.com this morning during the live show. Check out Jeffersonian Java, Franklin's Electric Elixir, Thomas's Painkiller, Washington's Revolutionary Roast, and Adams's Patriotic Perk. Our top 5 best sellers, but we do have others as well. Madisonian Morning. And if you're looking for K-Cups, guys, don't sleep on Knox's Continental Kick, because you can't sleep on Knox's Continental Kick. This coffee will knock your socks off, just like Knox did in the battle for Boston. Knox's Continental Kick, named after Henry Knox, Washington's trusted artillery commander and America's first Secretary of War. This coffee is so bright, so ebullient, that you will want to kill a redcoat. So get yours at forlibertyshop.com. And enjoy the bonus content since you've unlocked it. When we come up, Jeremy Kauffman to talk about why the right is wrong about $20 burritos. That's the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network. Don't go away.
In the town of Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, on November 26, 1727, a boy was born who would become the first overall commander of the Patriot forces at the outbreak of the American Revolution. His name was Artemas Ward. Ward grew up in a solid New England family and received a strong education, graduating from Harvard College in 1748. Like many ambitious young men of his generation, he combined public service with military experience. During the French and Indian War, he served as a colonel of Massachusetts militia, gaining practical knowledge of command, logistics, and the harsh realities of campaigning in North America. By the 1760s and early 1770s, Ward had become a respected figure in Massachusetts politics. He served in the colonial legislature and joined the growing resistance against British policies. When the confrontation finally turned into open warfare on April 19, 1775, at Lexington and Concord, the colonies suddenly needed military leadership on a scale they had never before attempted. In the chaotic days that followed the fighting, Massachusetts turned to Artemas Ward. He was appointed General and Commander-in-Chief of the Massachusetts forces. Other New England colonies soon placed their troops under his overall direction. Almost overnight, Ward found himself responsible for thousands of poorly trained, poorly supplied militiamen surrounding the British Army in Boston. The situation was extremely difficult. The Patriot forces were enthusiastic but disorganized. There was no formal supply system, little heavy artillery, and constant shortages of powder and provisions. Ward worked tirelessly to impose order, establish a chain of command, and maintain the siege of Boston. He directed the fortification of key positions around the city and tried to mold the disparate militia regiments into something resembling an army. In June 1775, while Ward was in overall command, the Battle of Bunker Hill was fought. Although he did not personally direct the fighting on the field that day, the battle took place under his authority as the senior American commander. The heavy British casualties at Bunker Hill proved that the poorly equipped Patriot forces could stand up to regular troops, a crucial early boost to American morale. When the Continental Congress created the Continental Army in June 1775, they chose George Washington as commander-in-chief. Ward was made a major general and became Washington's second-in-command. In July, Washington arrived in Cambridge and formally took charge. Ward stepped aside from overall leadership without public complaint and continued to serve loyally under the new commander. He remained with the Army through the successful conclusion of the Siege of Boston in March 1776, when the British were finally forced to evacuate the city. Afterward, Ward's active field service declined. Chronic poor health limited his ability to campaign, and in 1777 he resigned his commission. Even after leaving the Army, Ward continued to serve the Patriot cause. He sat in the Continental Congress and later held important judicial and political offices in Massachusetts. He lived to see American independence secured and the new Constitution put into effect. Artemus Ward died on October 28, 1800 at the age of 72. He was never a flashy battlefield commander or a brilliant strategist. His greatness lay in a different kind of leadership. In the dangerous and uncertain spring and summer of 1775, when the revolution was still fragile and the army was little more than a collection of armed farmers, Artemus Ward held the forces together. He organized the siege of Boston, maintained the army in the field, and provided the foundation upon which George Washington would later build. Without the early work of men like Ward, the Continental Army might never have survived long enough for Washington to take command. He was the steady hand at the beginning of the storm. Artemus Ward, the first commander of the Patriot Army, and the man who held the line until Washington arrived.
Welcome back. Thanks for sticking around. Hope you guys enjoyed that bonus content. Thank you all for your financial contributions that unlocked it. We're so grateful and to have you here. Jennifer Halboyne, did you miss John? I don't know. We didn't have any John on the show today. We had a Tom, and now we're going to have a Jeremy. My next guest is the libertarian who says the quiet part out loud that the rest of the libertarians are too afraid to say. He's the founder of the free speech video platform Odyssey. He's been a longtime mover in the Free State Project. He's the chairman of the Libertarian Party in New Hampshire. He also ran for Senate in 2022. This guy builds technology that governments can't censor, and he argues politics the same way. No apologies, no bullshit, no hedging. Jeremy Kauffman is here joining us live on the Wake Up America show to talk about burrito economics as the right heads into the fight. Jeremy, good to see you, brother.
You're just when I thought I was done arguing about burritos. Austin says, get back in the game one more time.
Well, we need to have we got to have it on camera. Yeah, I know that you were getting a little bit battered by people online who were very angry with you for talking about economics because the right used to talk about free markets. The left was always anti-free markets and anti-freedom, but the right used to talk about free markets and limited government and, you know, lifting yourself up by your bootstraps. Now it seems that the right has just decided to adopt the rhetoric of the left. And even maybe the socialist economics of the left, they just won't say it out loud. So this whole fight, Jeremy, started when a Turning Point student told Andrew Colvett that a burrito shouldn't cost $20. And then we all ripped each other apart over it. So Dan Crenshaw said that they should eat ramen. J.D. Vance clapped back. But then you did something that nobody did. You actually went out and priced it. So tell me straight up, is a $20 burrito, is that even real?
Well, I think they were talking about like takeout burritos or you get a burrito at Chipotle or whatever. And it was Joel Berry from the Babylon Bee who was like, I made burritos for my family of 8 last night, you know, for under $20. And, you know, and I just wanted to double check that. So I went to Walmart.com and priced out what I thought, you know, I'm not going to say it's a world-class burrito, but I think it's a perfectly fine burrito. And you can make burritos for 8 people for under $20. And I don't even think that like, I think there are problems with affordability. I don't think there's no problem here, but I'm someone who wants to understand the truth of things. And so I look things up and I ask if this is true. And it feels like, our reality has gotten very fact-free. People have all these opinions. They want their opinions to be validated and they don't care what's true.
That is the point. You just nailed it right there. I guess we can end the sentence. But let's talk about, like, so when Joel Berry said his wife feeds the whole family for under $20, he was right. So you can make a burrito for under $20. Does that include, what does that include? Meat, cheese, tortilla?
It was tortillas, beans, beef, onions, tomatoes. What else am I missing in a burrito? They were like, I even did the nutritional information. It was 700 calories per burrito for 8 people, and yeah, again, I will say it didn't include guacamole. If you've got to have guacamole on your burrito, that's going to cost you more money. And it is true. So I will say, when I was looking all this stuff up, my impression is food prices haven't risen nearly as much as people say, at least in real dollar terms. Real dollar terms is one of those ones that people think it means something.
Explain that because like we're 5 years old, Jeremy, because
yeah, for sure. So it's important when we think about what money is, that money is just a way of exchanging real goods and services. If overnight, every dollar that everyone had just doubled, right? It wouldn't change much of anything. It would screw up contracts denominated in the past in fixed amounts of dollars. But otherwise, everyone's salary would be double. Everything would cost twice as much. What we trade our labor for in terms of, and what we're able to buy, if money just doubled, it wouldn't really change anything. Money is a tool for facilitating these exchanges. So when economists attempt to talk about things in real dollar terms, they're saying they're adjusting everything to a sort of constant dollar. And so it is true that we've had inflation. It is true that food prices have gone up. It's also true that the median salary, and again, people are like, well, that's not true. I'm like, well, what's wrong with this data? The median salary since 2020 has gone up 31%. So, and it's actually gone up higher for lower income earners. So this isn't even a case of, it's being pulled up by the wealthy. It's actually the opposite. The salaries that have grown the fastest are the lowest decile and the lowest quartile in earnings. So that's what the data says. Now people are then saying, well, my subjective experience doesn't match the data. And
people say they feel squeezed. Yeah, they say that they say they're feeling real pain. So, and when I look at beef prices, for example, beef prices at least appear to be much more expensive than they were. When I go and try and buy the same steak that I bought 10 years ago, it certainly seems that it's gotten much more expensive here. So what are people feeling here?
So beef actually has. So this is one of the exceptions. So if we look at all food hasn't. Beef specifically has. Chicken and pork have not. In fact, pork has actually fallen in real dollar terms. So you can your labor buys more pork in 2026 than it bought in 2020. It does buy less beef. Beef appears to have risen for somewhat idiosyncratic reasons. I only looked this up a little bit, so I don't want to purport to understand it all. But herd sizes are actually down, so there are less cows alive in the United States today than there were in 2025 or in 2024. It takes time. One of the problems with beef is it takes 3 to 4 years to grow, to bring a new cow to market, essentially. Whereas for chicken, it takes about 8 weeks. So when demand changes for chickens, or if there's some sort of supply crisis, the market can move relatively quickly. With beef, it can't. And so we have a beef shortage. When we have less of something, of course, the price rises. So it really is true that beef is more expensive. That's not a myth. It's also true that, well, what does the market do when prices rise? Farmers are adapting, and we can actually look at the futures markets and see that a cow in December of 2027 is worth 10% less than a cow today. So the expected price of a future cow is going down. We're going to make more cows. Beef prices will fall over time. There are reasons related to drought and other economic reasons that basically some herds got culled and the sizes are rebounding, sort of slowly.
You say the food crisis is mostly fake, not entirely fake, but then there's housing, health insurance, the cost of raising a kid. Those are very real. They've blown past inflation. So do you think the burrito war is just a distraction?
Yeah, I do think it makes more sense to focus on, look, I'm sure that regulations and other issues make food more expensive than it could be. But if we want to look at what's really blown up in prices, it's definitely not groceries. It's housing, health insurance, childcare, schooling, all of these things. The even more heavily regulated things have climbed in prices, even more. And of course, also it is true that food bought out of the home, so restaurant food, has gone up as well. It's specifically groceries. This idea that all of these groceries have gotten more expensive. So far as I can tell, this one is not very true. It is true that some other things have gotten more expensive. Again, this is what the data says. People have subjective experiences that differ, but the cumulative, if we add up subjective experiences, what do we get? We get data, and I just don't, I don't find the data to be that poor. People seem to have questions about it, but when I look into them, it seems like reasonably quality data. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's hard. A system in which, and I don't even know that it's necessarily a bad system. I think even a free market in currency would probably prefer currencies with very slight amounts of inflation. But we had, these memories. Of course, you and I can remember, the dollar burritos at Taco Bell and all of these things. But of course, we all make more money today. And so we have this mismatch between our memories of past prices. And it's tough when prices are changing all the time. And by definition, that's what it means. If you're in a fiat system and the Fed is targeting an inflation rate of 2% and actually hitting an inflation rate of 3, 4, 5%, then that just means prices are going to double every 20 years or less, or every 15 years. And so, these things are going to change, and we're going to remember these low numbers, but we might not remember as much. Or we were in different places in our lives. It's like, we buy milk, we buy cheese, we buy meat for all of our lives. We don't necessarily remember, we don't necessarily know what we would have been earning had we been doing similar jobs at age 18, now that we're, older. So I do think it's partially memory. I do think there's something real. And I also think there's something fake. So it's mixed. There's all of these things in the mix.
Now, the data is the data. We can talk about the data, but we can't get people to accept the data is real, because we're also dealing with a phenomenon of people that feelings don't care about our facts, right? Because if you just say to a young person, you need to learn to cook, and they're drowning in rent, that'll land the same way that Let Them Eat Cake landed in France. So is there a risk that the kind of frugality lectures that people like Joel Berry are making are going to make us sound out of touch and hurt us electorally, even if the facts are on our side, Jeremy?
That's probably true. I don't see my role as I'm not there to post to help Republicans, win elections. That's not exactly why I'm on X. I'm not a politician. I'm there because I'm a curious person and I like talking through things in public. And so I'm not, I do think that's probably true. But it's also, I think it's Republicans, so far as I can tell, aren't also focused on to the extent that this is to like the actual sources of the problems. The Republicans are not the party of, not that the Democrats are, but neither is the party of let's build as many houses as possible, let's deregulate healthcare, right? The Republicans control the government. They didn't get rid of Obamacare.
And they're NIMBYs too. They're just as much NIMBYs as the left is. We can't build new houses,
Yeah. So, and even housing, which I think is real, if you actually look at the per square foot cost of a house has gone up, but it hasn't gone up much. What's really gone up is the median home is 30% larger. So a substantial increase in housing costs is people buying larger houses. We can ask why smaller houses aren't being built and what side of that problem is that supply, is that demand, or why aren't these smaller houses being built? But even the housing cost increases, which are definitely real, part of it is the average house is a lot larger. And And, even in terms of like when I was having this fight, about prices, like one of the ones that I kept, like people kept saying, well, beef isn't available in this area. And I would go into Walmart.com and set my location to their location and say, look, here's beef at this price for under $5 a pound. And like people would just block me or be like, well, I wouldn't eat that ground beef, or that ground beef has junk in it. I'm like, the ingredients are just beef. And so it's like, the idea that I don't think there's anything wrong with Walmart beef. You go, like, I think people are eating much better today in general than they ate in the past. At least if we're talking about a past 50 years ago, 60 years ago, 70 years ago. I think people are eating better. And you can even get leaner ground beef at Walmart. You can get 80-20 ground beef at Walmart for under $5 a pound.
So, Jeremy, do you think it's that they don't want to learn how to cook? They want to have DoorDash delivery for their burrito? Because I can see the point of the curmudgeonly boomers and the Joel Berries of the world, that like when I've talked to these people, like, hey, have you considered trying to eat it? Same thing that you talk about. They block you, they shut you out, they say that you don't care about the young. So that to me, it's not really an argument about economics. It's an argument about status.
Yes.
Explain that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Yes, that's exactly what I was. Sorry, I didn't mean to hijack you.
No,
yes,
go.
It's all about status. This stuff is all about status. Look, you want to live a life that people had in 1950 or 1850 or 1500. How much money do you need to live that quality of life? You don't need nearly as much money as people want to earn. So a lot of this is about people feel that they want to eat certain qualities of food. People want to have certain size houses. They feel that they deserve certain things. If you want to get at root causes, I do think one of them has to be social media giving people imprecise perceptions of, or incorrect, maybe rather is a better word, of how people are living. It's really easy to consume all this content and believe that all these people are living in certain ways and have very unrealistic understandings of how the average person is living. And so everyone wants to be doing the things that the top 5% or whatever are doing. They feel like they deserve them, and they're striving for these things, and they're getting into debt or whatever. Because I don't, and again, I'm not trying to say that there aren't some real problems here, but if you're young, I do not see why it is not possible to live in such a way that you can save 10% of your earnings each year. And you know what? If you save 10% of your earnings each year, you're going to end up with a house. You will still end up with a house. And again, that doesn't mean there aren't real problems here. That doesn't mean there aren't improvements that could be made. But it's always possible to save 10% of your money. You can live differently and you can save 10% of your money. And these are just things that I think a lot of people don't want to do. And it's not just young people, of course. A shocking amount of people into their 30s, into their 40s are not saving 10% of their money, each year.
So if they're not, then it almost feels like it's hopeless from an electoral perspective, Jeremy, because we're competing with people like this Abdul Sayed in Michigan and this Francesca Hong in Wisconsin, who are saying free, 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 free. So, I mean, at some point, there's got to be some way for us to be able to message this effectively. I know you said earlier that you're not interested in, trying to help Republicans win elections. I am, because I feel like
I am. I just don't see it as my duty. That's just
okay. It's not your duty. I'm not saying it's your duty, but if you were in charge of Republican policy, or at least let's, say you were the head of the Department of Agriculture, what's your first proclamation?
Well, I don't know if I was the Department of Agriculture exactly what I would do. It does stink that, Massey was one of the guys pushing something that would at least at the margin reduce food prices, like federal slaughterhouse laws, the ways that the reason that I can't just buy a cow from my local butcher. These laws are really messed up. We're trying to fix them in New Hampshire even, and we had a bill get vetoed by a Republican governor to allow local slaughter of animals. Hopefully it gets overridden on veto day next week. And even Massey today was encouraging New Hampshire to override their governor. So I am hopeful that we'll override the governor on this bill. But this is one of the ways we could bring down costs. It would also, whether it brings down costs or not, enable more small-scale entrepreneurship, which is clearly something that just brings people life satisfaction. People don't like working for large companies. They like working for smaller ones. Even if this is an inefficiency in the economy, people feel like they have more control over their lives. They feel like they have more say. And of course, and this is good if people want it. And and honestly, I would agree. I don't want to work for a large company either. I like working for myself or working for smaller companies. And so, making it easier for small farms to bring their meat to market, I think is a very, very good thing. And I would love the Prime Act to pass, and New Hampshire's equivalent of the Prime Act to pass. One of the things that kind of stinks about our reality, but I think is nonetheless true, is because we are relatively wealthy, a lot of politics is this status redistribution game. So policies that simply make everyone better off, there's not much room for. People don't get excited about them. And even while I think, for example, illegal immigration is a real problem, part of the reason it's a popular topic on the right is it also checks the status box of those people suck, And so I think if Republicans want a message on fixing this stuff, it can't just be about free market. I think, for example, it's the poor are stealing from you. All of these people on welfare. The people on welfare are why steak is expensive. So there's got to be an enemy. If the Republicans can make it clear that you'll be better off, and those other people will be essentially worse off because it's all status redistribution. This is one of the ways you can get these policies, to actually get through. So I would like to see sort of, more attacks, demonization towards the people on welfare, whether it's fraud or not. Why is your steak more expensive? Well, you know what? You're also competing to buy that steak against people with EBT cards who aren't paying for that steak in the first place.
Damn, Jeremy. You said it right there. You can't be the only one yelling at them in the parking lots. Jeremy Kauffman, where can we find out what you're working on these days, Jeremy?
So you can follow me on X at my full name. I have been doing this venture called the Free State Party. There's not too much there for people outside of New Hampshire, but you can check us out on YouTube. I have a video with Austin, so anyone who likes Austin, we have a feature-length program together on the Free State Party YouTube channel. It's the opposite of the topics of the day. It's deep, thoughtful stuff, which is, so it's only for an audience of a certain quality. But if you're of that quality, go onto the Free State Party YouTube channel and check it out. And if you like what we're doing there, give us a follow.
Endorsed. Jeremy Kauffman, thank you so much. We appreciate your points of view, and thanks for telling it like it is, no matter how bad people get angry at it. Have a great day.
Cheers.
Take care.
I want you to try something for me. Take a sip of this.
What is it?
A human drink. It's called root beer.
I don't know.
Come on. Aren't you just a little bit curious? What do you think?
It's vile.
I know. It's so bubbly and cloying and happy.
Just like the Federation.
But you know what's really frightening? If you drink enough of it, you begin to like it.
It's insidious.
Just like the Federation.
Do you think they'll be able to save us?
I hope so.
What does he mean? What does he mean when he plays that clip? I'm going to let you guys just ruminate on that one. Its relevance to what we were talking about there. Hope that you guys enjoyed the Wake Up America show today. Without people like St. Selma or Byron Norris or Andy Opperman or Rick Perry or Mongoose87 or Varagon X, there just would be no Wake Up America show. There'd be no For Liberty Network. Speaking of, make sure you guys are visiting forlibertynetwork.com early and often because we're constantly making updates to the network page. Head on over to For Liberty Network this morning if you haven't already. When you check out the website, you're going to see all kinds of new updates and things every single day. I wanted you guys to see that we now have a new quiz over there, a Which Founding Father Are You quiz. Guys, don't sleep on this. Find out which founding father you are. Take the quiz over at forlibertynetwork.com. Click the Which Founder Are You? Take the little brief 5-minute quiz. There's 12 possible matches. Begin the quiz. Decide if you are a woman of the revolution or a founding father, or let history decide. Head on over to forlibertynetwork.com, take the Founding Fathers quiz, find out which one you are, and sign up for our daily newsletter. It's the Daily Volley over at forlibertynetwork.com, your home for everything that has to do with all of our properties. The forlibertynetwork.com is where we live now. At forlibertynetwork.com, we're going to be doing all of our journalism. You can always find our shows, the shop, our quizzes, all the fun stuff over at forlibertynetwork.com. We'll see you guys right back again here tomorrow on the Wake Up America show at the For Liberty Network.
In the town of Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, on November 26, 1727, a boy was born who would become the first overall commander of the Patriot forces at the outbreak of the American Revolution. His name was Artemas Ward. Ward grew up in a solid New England family and received a strong education, graduating from Harvard College in 1748. Like many ambitious young men of his generation, he combined public service with military experience. During the French and Indian War, he served as a colonel of Massachusetts militia, gaining practical knowledge of command, logistics, and the harsh realities of campaigning in North America. By the 1760s and early 1770s, Ward had become a respected figure in Massachusetts politics. He served in the colonial legislature and joined the growing resistance against British policies. When the confrontation finally turned into open warfare on April 19, 1775, at Lexington and Concord, the colonies suddenly needed military leadership on a scale they had never before attempted. In the chaotic days that followed the fighting, Massachusetts turned to Artemas Ward. He was appointed General and Commander-in-Chief of the Massachusetts forces. Other New England colonies soon placed their troops under his overall direction. Almost overnight, Ward found himself responsible for thousands of poorly trained, poorly supplied militiamen surrounding the British Army in Boston. The situation was extremely difficult. The Patriot forces were enthusiastic but disorganized. There was no formal supply system, little heavy artillery, and constant shortages of powder and provisions. Ward worked tirelessly to impose order, establish a chain of command, and maintain the siege of Boston. He directed the fortification of key positions around the city and tried to mold the disparate militia regiments into something resembling an army. In June 1775, while Ward was in overall command, the Battle of Bunker Hill was fought. Although he did not personally direct the fighting on the field that day, the battle took place under his authority as the senior American commander. The heavy British casualties at Bunker Hill proved that the poorly equipped Patriot forces could stand up to regular troops, a crucial early boost to American morale. When the Continental Congress created the Continental Army in June 1775, they chose George Washington as Commander-in-Chief. Ward was made a Major General and became Washington's second-in-command. In July, Washington arrived in Cambridge and formally took charge. Ward stepped aside from overall leadership without public complaint and continued to serve loyally under the new commander. He remained with the army through the successful conclusion of the Siege of Boston in March 1776, when the British were finally forced to evacuate the city. Afterward, Ward's active field service declined. Chronic poor health limited his ability to campaign, and in 1777 he resigned his commission. Even after leaving the army, Ward continued to serve the Patriot cause. He sat in the Continental Congress and later held important judicial and political offices in Massachusetts. He lived to see American independence secured and the new Constitution put into effect. Artemas Ward died on October 28, 1800 at the age of 72. He was never a flashy battlefield commander or a brilliant strategist. His greatness lay in a different kind of leadership. In the dangerous and uncertain spring and summer of 1775, when the revolution was still fragile and the army was little more than a collection of armed farmers, Artemas Ward held the forces together. He organized the siege of Boston, maintained the army in the field, and provided the foundation upon which George Washington would later build. Without the early work of men like Ward, the Continental Army might never have survived long enough for Washington to take command. He was the steady hand at the beginning of the storm. Artemas Ward, the first commander of the Patriot Army, and the man who held the line until Washington arrived.
Time for a little grift off. We have 10 slots open to play the great grift off for you. Time to head over to crowdparty.app. That's crowdparty.app. Play the game, win a real prize from the grift shop. Head on over to crowdparty.app. The code is up on your screen. We only have enough room for 10 players, so get in there while the getting is good. Go to crowdparty.app. Type in the code 43164. That's 43164, and you're going to win a nice prize from the grift shop. Head on over to crowdparty.app. We can take up to 10 players. You can also take a picture of the QR code, that you see up on the top of your screen right there. Scan to join or type in the code 43164. Again, we have room for 10 players, only 10. We'll start the 30-second countdown. To join the game, go to crowdparty.app. That's crowdparty.app if you guys want to play the game. You now have 12 seconds to join the game. And we will begin now. Let's play. Who was the commanding officer of the USS Enterprise D? The USS Enterprise D. Quest, got it. Number 1. Red Pill Prof number 2. Ratio number 3. What is the home planet of Mr. Spock? Oh, that's an easy one. Oh no. Ding 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 ding. Ding ding ding. Ding 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 ding. Red Pill Prof number 1. Oh, I guess he's Star Trek fan. I should have known. Dang, you all got that immediately. Maybe we need to do like a Star Trek theme night. Got a bunch of nerds in here. Dang. I was not ready for this level of excitement for Star Trek. guys are fighting like crazy over this. Who was the chief engineer of the U.S. Enterprise in the original series? Almost all of you guys got it. It was Scotty. Beam me up, Scotty. Let's see who was the winner. Dang, Byron Norris. Byron, you are the winner. Congratulations, brother. We're going to send you a $20 gift card to the Grift Shop over at forlibertyshop.com. Brad, send Byron his gift card. Congratulations, Byron. Quest, he came in very close. Red Pill Prof was right up there. This was very tight. Like, you guys were all in the thousands. I guess this gives me a clue about what kind of content to produce for you guys in the future. Star Trek. I'm tucking that away for future years. So I'll remember you guys at Christmas. All right, guys. Thanks so much for playing the game. Thanks so much for unlocking the bonus content. We'll see you tomorrow on the Wake Up America show.
Tis the year of our Lord, 1801. President Trump Jefferson casts his gaze o'er the sovereign Potomac and beholds a most wretched spectacle upon the waters. From the cursed shores of Tripoli and the welfare coffers of distant Minnesota comes the brazen Captain Ilhan Omar, commanding her fleet of Barbary pirates. She demands her ransom, billions in reparations. Yet one instrument of fortitude suffices, a steaming chalice of Jeffersonian Java, bold and unapologetic from For Liberty Shop. No more tribute to rogues, he thunders, and dispatches the Navy and Marines to smash Omar's fleet asunder. Trump Jefferson stands triumphant as Omar's plunder meets the end it deserved back in Minnesota. Jeffersonian Java, the coffee that gives true Americans the courage to refuse tribute and rebuke fraud. Procure yours at forlibertyshop.com and make America caffeinated again.